Well, good morning, my friends. It's Trigger here, and today I want to get a little bit personal. I get comments from people that say that they have trouble understanding me in my videos. Not necessarily my voice, it's not necessarily the audio, but it's often associated with losing track of my speech or my speech patterns. Yeah, I don't apologize. See, I suffered in combat this thing called a TBI. And my injuries resulted from a very explosive moment where an 800-pound armor plate was thrown multiple times against the back of my head, 3 times I know of, crushing my hand, my shoulder. It put a 2.5-inch dent into the back of my CVC, and I wound up with fractures in my cervical spine, knocked me unconscious, and I fell to the turret and landed on the aft cap guard on my lumbar, and thus fractures and the leg pain and so forth. And ever since that hot August day in the desert, my brain has functioned differently. And it is an injury that I accept, and I could be worse off. So I feel lucky. I don't share with people often my story because most of the people that I share my story with, they just don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't see how it could work. And they don't understand the symptomology. And so today I want to talk to you about that. See, in simple terms, a traumatic brain injury is a traumatic blow or a jolt or a penetration to the head that transmits enough force to damage brain tissue, blood vessels, and neural connections, similar to the shaken baby syndrome. And you can, there are 3 different categories. There's mild, moderate, and severe. And I have been diagnosed with a moderate TBI. And that is based upon multiple factors, such as how long I was unconscious, to what the brain scans show, and the length of the memory loss, for instance. And there are other tests that were given. And there are parts of my past that, prior to the explosion, that I just do not remember, like my college years and my senior high school year. I got fragments from it. And but I remember my military service. And there's parts of my military service I wish I lost. But I am not that lucky. My TBI has led to lifelong complications. You see, when we experience a TBI, whether it's through combat or having an accident down here on the street, you've got the primary injury, which is the damage that happens at the time or the moment of impact. It could result in, a loss of brain tissue, exposure of the brain. It could just be an impact. It can be multiple lacerations and so forth. And then there are the secondary injuries that are the aftermath, that come from the swelling and the inflammation and any oxygen loss and chemical changes that may occur inside the brain. And they make things worse over time. Right. Some of these issues will balance out over time, and some will continue to worsen as you age. And that's what I'm experiencing. And it affects one's daily life. Immensely affects, because it controls everything that we do, our brain does. And the symptoms vary from person to person to person. And they do not go away quickly. A lot of people think, oh, you got hit in the head, take an aspirin. It's not that easy. See, I have physical and neurological motor effects from it. I have 24/7 headaches, constant headaches. I can't remember what it's like not to have a headache. And that leads to dizziness and balance issues. And then it affects my sleep. So I'm fatigued all day. And when you're fatigued, then you have coordination problems and sometimes seizures. And then you can lose your stamina, physically and mental stamina. And the physical stamina can be from sexual to being able to run. It affects it all. And sometimes I have trouble walking. Sometimes I don't. I walk fine. Other days I need my cane. And then there are other days that I'm looking for and wishing I had a wheelchair. But I cannot allow pain to sit here and dictate how I live my life, because pain is a sign of weakness. And sometimes loud sounds and lights can trigger pain, making reading and driving and even watching TV difficult. And then we've talked about it. All this compounds together and makes it hard to sleep, and that creates exhaustion, which creates mental fog. And when you are in that situation, then the cognitive impacts start to manifest, because you see there's information, difficulty processing information. It's much slower. Your concentration fades. Your short-term memory fades. Your working memory starts to suffer, making planning and organization or organizing and problem solving feel overwhelming, because there's steps you forget or something you need to do. And this started to impact me when I wore that Fed suit. I once was fluent in 5 languages, and now I struggle with English, which is my native language. And I have to really work for German because I have German kids, right? So I struggle with English and German, the 2 languages that mean the most. And I cannot for the life of me get back my French, my Italian, or my Russian. And don't even get into multitasking. Because if we being people with TBI, have to sit here and do a series of things at the same time, I'm great. I can cook. At one time I can do this. At one time I can do that. But when it comes to multitasking, things that people take for granted, it becomes nearly impossible, because I start to mismatch the steps. And then that starts to affect us emotionally. And then that emotional stress starts to affect our behavior, creating an irritability or mood swings, depression, anxiety. We become impulsive. We have apathy. And then to make this even worse, right? The stress becomes harder to tolerate, and it starts to strain our relationships, and we withdraw socially. And then it's easy to feel trapped in our own emotions and feelings, because we're misunderstood by those individuals around us. Sensory and perceptual changes occur, and it's all tied together, because we start to see have double vision, or light sensitivity, or ringing in the ears. We lose our sense of taste and smell. And I'm fortunate I only have 2 of these, because the explosion occurred right here to my left. And so I have the ringing in the ears from the tinnitus, and I'm very sensitive to light, hence why I've got blackout window coverings in my vehicle. Pisses cops off. I'm sorry, I've got a doctor's note. Busy environments like Burning Man become very unbearable to me. And I love my Burning Man, because there's so many crowds and lights and noise, and it becomes very overwhelming to my senses. And I had to find ways of combating that in order to facilitate my attendance. So the good thing is that I have learned techniques to help assist me through life, because heaven forbid working in a building with 50 other people or 75 other people, my brain it doesn't reset like it used to when I go to sleep. I'm not getting enough sleep, because I experience insomnia. When I do fall asleep, I oversleep. I'm constantly in fatigue because of the lack of sleep. I get 4 hours of sleep. If I'm lucky, 6 on a great day. And so I live with ever-present brain fog. trying to get my brain to wrap around what I'm talking about, what I'm speaking, or what I'm reading is very difficult. It just doesn't rest and reset like it used to. And then there's this whole series of chronic and secondary effects that we have, right? Each person with a TBI has or displays different symptomology. And over the past 20 years, I've lived with chronic pain and headaches and migraines from the injuries. And those have resulted in hormonal fluctuations, heart rate irregularities, fatigue syndrome, and then post-traumatic epilepsy. And my first seizure was scary as fuck. All of this together that I've talked about, that's my life. And it takes a toll. It takes a toll physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there are individuals that have post-traumatic, have TBI far worse than I, and some that are far better than I. The TBI, between that and my PTSD, I've struggled to maintain employment. I've become socially isolated, and conversations for me can become very difficult. And so I shut down. My fatigue and my mood swings, they push people away from me. And thus I've built defenses where I don't allow individuals close. And sometimes I feel like I'm this emotional burden on those people around me. And this leads to personal frustration, self-doubt, and anxiety. Making videos like this is hard as fuck for me. And that's why I don't do all this fancy flying shit and bring in all the video clips from someone else, because it's hard enough to focus on what I want to express. But then to try to make it flavorful for you to meet your talent, it becomes emotionally painful. Pardon me for that. I just belched. I live with PTSD on top of my TBI, and that adds to the depression, adds to the hypervigilance, and adds to the sleep disturbances, adds it all to the mix. I've killed more people than I have ever loved, and I only remember the first. The military doesn't prepare you for that. And these people out here on the streets who are threatening civil war, they think it's going to be great. Ooh, just wait. PTSD is one of the most horrible things. And then put it in with the fluctuations we have in our cognitive shell, that TBI shell, and put those in the mix, and it makes it hard. But I'm still here. I fight every day. And I use my energy from this fight. And I use this energy from this passion that I have for it to bring awareness and advocacy, bring awareness about TBI. Especially now, as this new administration is beginning to limit access to TBI care for veterans. And hence why I have my ministry, the Open Road Ministry. I'm on the road. I go out into the more dispersed communities, and I deal with the veterans who need assistance, and I share what I know, and I listen to them about their experiences with PTSD and TBIs and such. I try to be an advocate for these individuals because many people still don't understand the reality of a soldier. They don't know the reality of being a veteran. They don't even know the reality of being a civilian that faced head trauma. See, my symptoms, they're all managed through holistic care. And in order for me to manage, and the reason I mention this is because I go to speech and occupational and physical therapy every month. And I have art therapy. Not only do I conduct art therapy, but you can't treat yourself. So I go to art therapy, equine therapy, I go to cognitive rehabilitation and psychological counseling. And I combine all of these with mind and body practices like yoga, meditation, breathing exercises, gentle movement techniques, reflexology, and acupuncture. My primaries are music and art therapy. And that takes you back to Burning Man. And why, to me, is very important. Even though there's 70,000 people there, I can escape and I can become one with the art and become one with the music. You see, music and art, they help me process my emotions. They help me reconnect with my creativity. Now, it's important for everyone to realize that everybody with a TBI, they experience it differently. There's not a one size fits all, and there's not this magic pill. And you can't put it into AI and have AI give you the answers. And that's why I advocate for comprehensive rehabilitation and integrative care. See, I am anti-pharma. Pharmaceuticals are just a quick fix. I'm very anti-pharma because I've seen the harm that masking the symptoms of TBI can cause. If you mask the symptoms instead of treating the causes, you create an environment which is unmanageable for the victim. I believe in rebuilding the body, the mind, and the spirit together. And so in my videos, if I struggle to find the words or my speech seems off, just understand this. That difficulty comes from the sacrifices I made while protecting this country. And it's something I live with every day. So as you throw away your freedoms, remember that I sacrificed for the freedoms you gave up. And if sharing my experiences helps even one person understand what it means to live with a TBI or a traumatic brain injury, then it's worth it. My friends, may peace and happiness be with you today. And I want to thank you for listening to my story. I don't do this for clicks, and I don't do this for views. I don't do this for monetization purposes. I do this and put myself out there, present on YouTube, because this is my voice and these are the things I believe and the things that I wish, and I'm looking for individuals who might need to hear my words to help them with a similar situation. So I do ask with this and my thing about PTSD and alpha-gal that are coming, this video, if you know someone with TBI, share it with them. Let's build an environment of awareness. Let's make a difference in society.